Tom, it's a dealer's choice today. What would you like to start with?
Well, let's start with Antoine Charret, because I heard him the other night when he got named, and I thought he did an outstanding job, and I understand you had him on this afternoon.
I did. We had a good chat as well. I'm very impressed by him.
Me too.
He's someone who's been studying, obviously for a long, long time. His dad involved for so many years, but he seems very much, his own man. I have a little clip here. You didn't hear it, Tom, I know. So I did ask him at one point, to be fair. I had Charles Maillard in here the other day, and I think a lot of people were less than impressed with what they had heard. So I asked him about that. Here's what he said.
I'm sure our leader will come up with a plan and will speak on those issues. I think he's taking his time, and I think he's methodical. I think he's serious. I think he wants to give it time, and I think he wants to be ready come election time and say, on housing, on affordability, healthcare, education, French language. He's presented a plan. I think he's very serious on these issues. He wants to do it the right way. And he wants to, and he's taking his time to do it. Sometimes taking your time before you take a decision or think about it can be good, even in politics. Politics.
So I wonder, though, can you keep taking that time? At some point, when do you have to stop?
I don't know. How many times did he say taking your time?
Yeah.
It's interesting because they don't look at all alike. You don't notice the similarity of intonations between Jean Charest and the candidate we just heard, Antoine Charret. But holy moly, do they ever have the same voice and intonations? It's really quite something. I think that he's going to do great in politics. He's got to do the first thing, though. He's got to get himself elected in Verdun. That's not going to be a cakewalk. The woman who is the MNA there right now, Alejandra Zaga-Mendez, she is really a strong candidate. Great story to tell about, somebody coming in here as a refugee, very similar to our mayor, and she's worked her way up. She teaches at the university level, at the highest level. I was invited to write the preface to a book that she and Jérôme Duprat, our new scientist-in-chief for the province of Quebec, wrote together. So she's not to be underestimated, nor is Charret. I mean, I would say that one of the things that helps him is the fact that in Verdun, there's still a pretty large English-speaking community, and as we just heard, I'm sure he's got no accent in French either, but he certainly doesn't have he speaks English like you and me, and that's going to help him with a lot of the people there, including, of course, the majority community, but the minority English-speaking community, which, by the way, has within it a fairly large Irish-Canadian population, and that'll help too because Jean Charest has always celebrated his Irish roots.
Tom, you've been through this a bunch of times. This idea that, for all the heat that Charles Maillard is taking in, some people said I was a little hard on him the other day, but I played him what David Hertel said, which is, he hasn't broken through, and what do you stand for? Nobody seems to know. Is this really a matter of, we're heading into a pretty quiet time of the year. No one really pays attention in the summer. When this campaign really gets underway, come August or the middle of August, do you expect to see a change in that, or is what we have now what we're likely to get then?
Because, first of all, he is a very engaging person. I've had a chance to sit down with him and meet him, and he's super smart. It doesn't take a lot to realize that. But he's never, ever, ever, ever been in politics. And I'm sorry, the older I get, the more I appreciate experience. And if you've never been in the game, then you've got to surround yourself by people who know the game. But I sometimes get the impression with Mr. Maillard that he has so much confidence in his own abilities that he doesn't think he needs to consult. He needs to consult. He needs on things. He got himself in serious trouble on the notwithstanding clause because he just stumbled. He didn't know the details. And it's not as if there were not enough people in the Quebec Liberal Party who couldn't have coached him on that, but he just stumbled into it, and then he went back and talked about it and got in trouble again. So, again, he's got to figure this stuff out. It's not like giving a speech at a Chamber of Commerce where you get to read it off and there's basically no questions. It's very fast-moving, very fast-paced. We're heading into the election, but as you just said, right now, the National Assembly finished last Friday, the House of Commons finished yesterday. We're heading into St. Jean-Baptiste and Canada Day, and then barbecue time until the middle of August. And then we come back, and it'll start settling down. He's got to figure out a very detailed game plan between now and then. He's not, his French language thing, for example, no problems with it. But I don't think it was going to, it wasn't set to inspire it. And the only thing he needed was to get by without being attacked. He was attacked anyway, because as long as you're not saying that, you've got to keep all francophones out of English Cégep, then you're not going to be pleasing the separatists or the quasi-separatists like Jean-François Robert. So good on him for coming up with his own stuff, for pushing hard on it, for working with a good team, but he's got to be more careful. His announcement, for example, that he was going to sue the PQ, that just wasn't going to fly. It would never have produced any result. It was an empty threat. He could have held the exact same press conference, huffed and puffed, and said how bad it was that the Parti Québécois used a slander on them, comparing them to organized crime, and then it would have been easy. He just walks away from it. And people think badly of the PQ for saying something that's stupid. But right now he looks a little bit silly because it looks like he made an empty threat.
But doesn't that just put more wind in PSPP's sails? Because he could say, look, I accuse them of doing this, and they're not even pushing back.
Well, not really. Simply because anybody who knows anything about a lawsuit knows that it wasn't going to go anywhere anytime near the election. You know, the steps to get that sort of thing to court would take years. And so it would have been a totally idle threat. And dropping the thing would have led to, all sorts of more speculation. At some point, you got to stop dragging around with something like this.
All right. I want to ask you, by the way, one thing. This headline, with respect to what Charles Maillard's got to do, right? Mathieu Bocoté, I'm sure you've seen this, but the headline I guess this is your now, says the PLQ, so the Liberal Party, ne veut pas que le Québec soit français.
Right.
That's his take.
Well, that's not even as bad as what Jean-François Roberge said. And Jean-François Roberge, who is with Christine Frechette's CAQ, and who I think they're going to have to put a butterfly net over that guy if he keeps saying stupid stuff like this. But he went further. Basically, the Liberals, for all intents and purposes, want to kill the French language. I mean, it's just completely bonkers and over the top. So, yes, that's what I was referring to. His adversaries are going to say all sorts of exaggerated things. But the bottom line is they can't point to a single thing in there that's actually problematic other than the debate over English CJADs. And, the day you start telling adults, and this is the whole thing about trying to cut back on adult ed, the minute the heavy-handed state decides that it's going to start telling adults what choices they're allowed to make, then you've changed categories. Yeah. You're no longer in a free and liberal democracy.
Tom, I want to move on to municipal issues here. The mayor coming out today. This is all in the wake, of course, of what happened in Montreal North at Police Station 35. Now we know some of the black police officers there are sort of concerned for their safety.
Yes.
And then Soraya Martinez, Ferrada, and I give her credit for this.
Me too.
She is married to a person of color and used a personal experience here saying, you know what, this idea of systemic racism, it's not just a theory. My own husband has had this happen to him over and over. Listen to this clip.
I think we have to ask ourselves the question. I think it is also a way to rebuild the trust with citizens, and it's something that I think the police should be looking into. She's
talking of going ahead and saying, you know what, let's call a spade here. This is systemic racism. Let's just stop beating around the bush.
Yes, and I think it takes a lot of courage, and it has to be done perfectly, and I think she did it perfectly. Because in the clips that I've heard, she simply says, my husband is black. This has happened to him any number of times, being pulled over or being stopped, being questioned for absolutely no reason, and that has to stop. We had a very, very strong Superior Court decision going back maybe 2 years ago now, very strong decision about that sort of thing that was systemic discrimination, pulling people of color, as you say, over for no reason. And by the way, the police are allowed to stop a car that they're concerned about if they have an objective reason. They can ask anybody questions if they have an objective reason. What they're just not allowed to do is to pull over a very fancy sports car just because it happens to be driven by someone who's black. And that's, in the United States, they even have a mocking term for that. Instead of driving while intoxicated, it's driving while black. And that's got to stop. And good on our mayor for having the guts to say it. I think she did it perfectly.
Tom, what's keeping the provincial government from doing the same?
Well, one of the first things that has to be put in place so that you don't have this fight all the time about whether or not there's a reason is to have body cams. But we've had a positive recommendation to do what almost all major police forces in North America do now, which is to have body cams for police. The police union here, for absolutely incomprehensible reasons, has always dug in its heels that we want nothing to do with body cams. Now, all of a sudden, people are starting to come around. Will the new government, whichever one it is, actually do that? I certainly hope so. Because put it together with another discussion we had recently. You want to have the possibility of accusing somebody of insulting a police officer. That already exists in big cities like Sherbrooke or Quebec City. Montreal doesn't exist, and we see where that leads. But if you're going to have that, if you have somebody in their car saying, hold on, I just told you I'm going to get my driver's license. It's in the glove box. Well, maybe some police officer will say, well, that's talking to me badly. So you have to have a recording of that. You have to have an objective way to show whether or not there was actually a problem with the way person talked. Same thing here. Saying, no. I wasn't pulling him over because of his color. Look at what my dash cam showed. Look at what my body cam showed. This guy was all over the road, zigzagging and passing people any which way, and that's the reason he got pulled over. So you have to be able to have a way to prove which version is true. Otherwise, it's just going to be constant he said, she said.
Yeah, and of course, the fallback is, and I'm not sure I have the facts on this right. Yes, the city has money put aside for this. The mayor said $40 million. The province is, we have to think about it. We have a pilot project going on. Tom, I did a quick check. The last pilot project on this was 5 years ago. It's over, and nothing has happened since.
Yeah, that was a big mistake, by the way, on the part of the government to try to plead pilot project. That was malarkey. They've been stalling. They've been foot dragging. They have no excuse for it. It's an election period. So they're going to try to show somehow that there's been some movement, but it's completely fake.
And that's where we are today. All right.
Yep.
Tom, we'll leave it at that. Hey, have a great vacation. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
and we'll see you on the other end. You bet.
Pride is like love. You feel it in your heart. iHeartRadio, Canada's #1 streaming app for radio and podcasts, including iHeart Pride Canada, your favorite hits, and must-have party bangers, plus personalized and curated playlists like Back in the Day Pride.
Come together, celebrate love.
Take Pride with you, anytime, anywhere. Just ask your smart speaker to play iHeart Pride Canada. Stream us on your phone or listen now at iHeartRadio.ca.